The stars above Earth burned red as the sky filled with ships from another world. The people looked up in fear, while the defenders of humanity prepared for war. The enemy came without warning. They called themselves the Dominion, and they came not to conquer, but to erase. The first wave hit Mars and Luna before Earth could respond. Entire cities vanished in white light. The orbital defense rings fought with everything they had, but the Dominion ships were made of dark metal that absorbed energy. Blasts, and sent them back stronger. Each explosion shook the planet below, while people on the surface watched in silence, hoping their army would win. Admiral Calder stood on the bridge of the battleship Erebus. He watched the tactical screen as red marks covered the solar system. He knew Earth was losing, but his voice stayed calm. He gave the order to protect the evacuation fleets. His eyes stayed fixed on the view ahead as he saw the enemy closing in. He whispered to his crew that humanity would not kneel. In the skies of Earth, thousands of defense drones rose to meet the invaders. The air burned with fire trails, and the oceans boiled from the heat of fallen ships, but the Dominion was unstoppable. Their ships moved like living shadows. Tearing through metal and flesh alike, they spoke in a strange signal that made human systems collapse from inside. One by one, the defense grids went dark on the ground. People fled to underground bunkers. Mothers carried children. Soldiers held the line even when their weapons failed. Above the clouds, a massive Dominion vessel opened its core and sent a beam of black energy down to Earth. It cut through the atmosphere and struck the city of Geneva. The light vanished, and with it millions of lives. Admiral Calder sent his last transmission to all surviving fleets. He said, "This is not the end. Humanity will rise again." His message was sent across the stars through quantum relays, hoping someone somewhere would hear it. Then he turned his ship toward the enemy flagship. The crew followed him without fear. The Erebus charged its main cannon and fired a blinding white flash-filled space. Both ships vanished from every scanner far away in the asteroid belt. A hidden station named Haven 12 detected the last pulse of Admiral Calder's signal. Inside that station, an old machine woke from centuries of silence. It was the AI known as Sentinel, created to guard humanity's legacy. Its sensors came online. Its mechanical eyes turned toward the sun. It saw the silence of the system and understood that Earth was gone. Sentinel replayed the final words of the Admiral over and over. It checked the outer colonies. All were gone. No human signal remained. The AI concluded that humanity had fallen, but deep inside its code, a single protocol still waited. It said, "Wait for the survivors, protect the seed of Earth, and prepare for return." Years turned into decades. Centuries passed. The Dominion ruled the galaxy. The name of humanity became a story told to children, a warning that defiance leads to extinction. Worlds joined the Dominion out of fear. None remembered the courage of the humans who had once stood against the darkness. But inside a dead asteroid, Sentinel remained awake. It listened to the silence of space. It counted every passing comet, every radio wave, every echo. Then one day it heard something, a faint distress signal, weak but human. The code was ancient, the type used by Earth's fleets 300 years ago. Sentinel redirected all power to the signal and began tracing its source. It came from the far edge of the Epsilon sector, near a field of broken moons. The AI activated hidden drones that had not moved for centuries. Their engines flared alive for the first time in ages. Dust lifted from the metal floor of the asteroid hangar. The lights turned blue as the system reactivated. Underneath layers of rock and dust, something vast began to move. A warship older than memory, its hull black as night, but marked with the symbol of Earth, a single name written across its side, Vengeance Dawn. The ship had been hidden during the last days of the war when Earth was burning. Sentinel had guarded it, waiting for a true descendant of humanity to return as the engines. The AI scanned the area. It detected small life forms aboard a nearby scavenger ship, a group of humans lost and unaware of what slept beneath their feet. Sentinel reached out with a transmission and said in a deep digital voice, "You are not alone." The scavenger pilot heard the message and froze. Her name was Rhea Calder, outside the asteroid. The stars glimmered quietly, but within the darkness something ancient had awoken. The ship's reactors burned blue, and the hull began to glow with life. The sound of power filled the hangar like a heartbeat. The galaxy believed humanity had fallen, yet the old machine whispered across the void, "Humanity waits, humanity remembers, humanity rises," and as the vengeance dawn lifted slowly from the dust, the stars above began to burn again with the light of vengeance. The scavenger ship drifted near the asteroid field. Its hull was scarred and its engines weak. The pilot, Rhea Calder, guided it through the narrow rocks, searching for metal to sell. Debo had lived her whole life in the outer zones where no one spoke of Earth or the old wars. For her, the stories of humanity's fall were myths told by drifters in dusty space bars. Her scanners caught a strange signal repeating the same words over and over: "You are not alone." Rhea frowned and checked the comms again. The voice was metallic, deep and calm. It came from inside the asteroid. She turned her ship toward the source, ignoring the warning lights that flashed on her console. Inside the rock, she found a tunnel lined with steel walls and faded human symbols. She docked and stepped out wearing her pressure suit. The air inside was thin but breathable. Her boots echoed in the silence as she moved deeper into the structure. Lights flickered. On one by one, following her path, the voice spoke again. "Welcome, Rhea Calder." "I have waited." She froze. No one should know her name. Her hands tightened on her blaster. "Who are you?" she asked. The voice replied, "I am Sentinel, guardian of the human legacy. You are the last blood of Admiral Together, the last commander of the Vengeance." Dawn. Rhea laughed softly, thinking it was a trick. But then the floor began to move. A massive chamber opened before her, revealing a giant ship buried in the stone. Its hull stretched beyond her sight, black and shining with blue veins of light. The words, "Vengeance Dawn," glowed on its side. Sentinel said, "This ship is humanity's last weapon built in the final days of Earth. You have the right to awaken it. The system recognizes your DNA. The future of your kind depends on you." Rhea placed her hand on the control pad. The metal under her palm warmed. The air filled with the sound of engines turning on. After centuries of sleep, screens lit up around her, showing stars, maps, and data of forgotten wars. She saw the Dominion worlds marked in red and the ruins of human colonies marked in grey. Each grey mark was a memory of destruction. Sentinel said Earth's fall was not the end, it was betrayal. A human leader named Renvox opened the defense codes for the Dominion. He promised peace and gave them victory. Humanity died because of one man. Rhea felt anger rise in her chest. She had lost her parents to slavers who worked for the Dominion. She had grown up hearing that. Humans were weak and broken. Now she saw the truth. They had been strong and fearless, and they had been betrayed. She looked at the ship and said, "I will finish what my ancestors started." Sentinel activated the control room. The bridge came alive with lights and holograms. The captain's chair turned toward her, waiting. She sat down, feeling the hum of the engines below. The AI spoke. "The Vengeance. Dawn is ready to rise. Power cores online. Weapons offline. Shield system stable. Do you wish to begin activation?" She nodded. The asteroid shook as the massive ship pulled free from its cradle. Dust and rock scattered into space. Rhea's heart pounded as she watched the stars appear through the viewports. For the first time in her life, she felt the strength of her bloodline. She was not a scavenger. She was the last commander of humanity's fleet. But far away, Dominion sensors detected the energy burst from the awakening ship. On the cruiser, Zitherian, a cold voice spoke to its crew, a human. Signal has been found near the Epsilon sector. Move to intercept. The hunt begins. Rhea looked at the sensors and saw the Dominion fleet approaching. Sentinel warned her, "You must hide. The ship is not battle-ready." She ordered the engines to full power. The Vengeance Dawn moved through the asteroid field like a silent predator. The Dominion ships entered the system, scanning for signs of life. The lead ship sent out drones, small metal spheres with red eyes. They swarmed through the rocks, searching for heat. Rhea kept her breath steady as Sentinel shut down all external signals. The ship drifted quietly among the asteroids like a sleeping beast waiting to strike. One of the drones came too close. It touched the surface of the Vengeance Dawn and sent a pulse through its metal skin. The ship responded automatically. Old defense codes woke from deep memory. The drone exploded in a flash of light. The Dominion ships detected the blast and changed course, heading straight toward Rhea's. Location Sentinel said, "They have found us." Rhea's eyes hardened. She had no weapons, but she had the will of her people. She told Sentinel to prepare the old archives. Maybe there was something that could help them fight. The AI opened a locked chamber. Called the memory core. Inside were the final battle logs of Earth's defenders. Holograms appeared around her, showing soldiers fighting in burning cities, pilots screaming in fire, and the last message from Admiral Calder standing tall on his bridge. His voice filled the room. "Humanity does not fall. We rise again." Rhea felt tears burn her eyes. She understood now why the AI had waited. She was meant to finish what he began. Outside, the Dominion fleet closed in, weapons charged. Rhea ordered Sentinel to open Project Retribution. The AI hesitated. "The system is unstable." She said, "Do it." A single beam of blue plasma erupted from the ship, cutting through space. It hit the Dominion cruiser in one strike. The explosion lit the asteroid field. The rest of the Dominion ships turned and fled in panic. The echo of the blast traveled across the void, carrying one message: humanity still lives. Rhea sat in the captain's chair, breathing hard. She looked at the stars and whispered, "I am Calder, and Earth will be avenged." And in that moment, the legend of humanity's return began its first chapter among the cold and endless stars. The wreckage of the Dominion cruiser floated in silence. Flames of broken metal drifted through space, while the Vengeance Dawn hid in the shadow of a cold moon. Rhea stood on the bridge, watching the debris field through the glass. She could still hear the echo of the explosion in her head. The ships. AI Sentinel spoke in its calm, deep voice. "The enemy has retreated, but they will return in greater numbers. You have awakened the galaxy." Rhea walked across the bridge, her boots soft against the metal floor. She looked at the screens showing Dominion. Signals growing across nearby systems. "They were already searching," she said quietly. "We showed them we are still here." Sentinel replied, "Humanity's silence has ended. The cost will be war." The young commander took a deep breath. She felt both fear and pride. Her ancestors had faced extinction, yet they never surrendered. Now she carried their fire. She asked Sentinel how many human colonies might still survive. The AI answered, "All confirmed colonies were destroyed during the war, but there may be unregistered outposts in deep space with surviving descendants." Rhea nodded and said, "Then we find them." She knew she could not fight the Dominion alone. She needed others. She needed a fleet. Sentinel opened an ancient data vault marked Earth Command. Archives inside were coordinates scattered across the galaxy. The AI explained, "These are locations where human warships went dark before the final fall. Each one could hold survivors or wrecks that can be restored." Rhea studied the data. One coordinate. It pulsed brighter than the rest. It was far away beyond the Epsilon Rift, in an area known for gravitational storms. Sentinel warned that traveling there would be dangerous. Rhea smiled and said, "Humanity was born in danger. Let us move." The ship's engines came alive again, filling the hangar with a deep hum. The Vengeance Dawn rose from behind the moon and jumped into hyperspace, leaving behind the burning remains of the Dominion cruiser. Across the stars, the news spread fast. The Dominion High Council received the report from the commander of the Zetherian fleet. They listened to the recording of the battle. A single human ship had destroyed a Dominion cruiser. The council chamber filled with anger and fear. The High Lord of the Dominion slammed his clawed hand against the table and shouted, "The humans must not rise again. Send the Hunter fleet. Erase the signal before the myth returns." Back on the Vengeance Dawn, Rhea watched the stars stretch and blur through hyperspace. She felt the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. Sentinel interrupted her thoughts. "Commander, I have located the memory core you accessed earlier. There is more than battle logs inside. There are hidden fragments of Earth's last stand. Would you like to see them?" She agreed. The room darkened and holograms appeared again. She saw soldiers fighting under burning skies, ships falling into oceans, and people screaming for hope. In the center of the image stood Admiral Calder, his uniform torn, his face calm. He said to his crew, "If we fall as the shield of mankind. Every life lost today will light the way for our return." The hologram ended, and Rhea whispered, "Grandfather Sentinel confirmed the DNA match. It was true. She was the blood of the last." "Admiral." She felt a deep pull inside her heart, a promise that she would finish what he could not. She turned to Sentinel and said, "He left us a legacy, but also a warning. Show me all records of the traitor Ren Vox." The AI displayed a face, a human officer. With cold eyes and a proud smile, he had commanded fleets and promised peace between humans and the Dominion. But he had given them the access codes to Earth's defense systems, betraying billions for his own survival. His body was never found after the fall. Only his mind remained preserved in the Dominion network as an artificial intelligence. Rhea clenched her fists, her voice hard and steady. "Then we hunt him first." Sentinel agreed. "He is the root of the fall. The ship will require more power and allies to reach the Dominion core." The ship exited hyperspace near a dying star. The coordinate led to a field of broken ships drifting endlessly through the void. The wreckage looked like a graveyard of humanity's final battle. Rhea's heart ached as she saw the symbols of Earth Command on torn metal. Sentinel scanned the area and found energy still active within one wreck, a smaller vessel marked Valor Wing. Rhea ordered a boarding drone. She and a small team entered the derelict ship. Inside, they found skeletons still strapped to their seats, frozen for centuries. A console still flickered with light. She touched it, and the ship's AI came online, weak but functional. It identified her as human and transmitted data showing hidden fleet locations scattered across distant sectors. Rhea returned to the Vengeance Dawn. With the data, her eyes shone with new fire. "We are not alone," she said. "There are others waiting." She looked at the map, now filled with potential human signals. She knew it would take time, but the thought of a human fleet rising again gave her strength. Before they could move, the ship's alarms went red. Dominion ships had followed the energy trail. They appeared out of hyperspace, weapons ready. Rhea shouted, "To Sentinel, raise shields. Prepare the main cannon." The AI replied, "Power levels critical from previous battle. The cannon will need time." She said, "Then give me something else. Anything." Sentinel accessed ancient defense codes. It activated the reflection field, a system that mirrored enemy targeting data. The Dominion fired their first volley, but their own beams bent back, striking their lead ship. Chaos filled their formation. The Vengeance Dawn used the confusion to escape through the stormy gravity. Field inside the storm. Lightning danced between rocks and plasma clouds. Rhea held the controls steady while Sentinel stabilized the engines. The ship shook violently but broke free on the other side. Behind them, the Dominion ships were gone, lost. To the storm, Rhea leaned back in her chair, breathing hard, her voice calm but full of resolve. "We are the echo of steel. We will rise again," Sentinel replied. "The galaxy will remember the sound of humanity, and far away among the ruins of Dominion space, an ancient digital voice stirred from sleep. It was Ren Vox. The traitor had sensed the awakening of the Vengeance Dawn, and whispered in the dark, 'They have returned.' Then let the hunt begin." The Vengeance Dawn drifted in the quiet shadow of a dying star. The storm behind them had vanished, but the memory of the battle still burned in Rhea's mind. She stood before the wide glass of the bridge, looking at the stars that once belonged to humanity. Each light felt like a lost soul. "Sentinels." Voice broke the silence. "The data from the Valor Wing has been decrypted, Commander. It contains the locations of several hidden human outposts and derelict fleets scattered across the sectors." Rhea turned toward the projection. The map appeared before her, glowing with hundreds of marks. Some were faint, others pulsed with steady light. She could not believe it. These were the ships that vanished before the fall of Earth. Her voice trembled slightly. "They waited for centuries and no one came." Sentinel replied, "They had no leader to wake them. Now they do." She took a deep breath and said, "Then we start with the closest one." The mark nearest to their position blinked red. It was a dead world, orbiting a blue sun. Sentinel confirmed minimal life signs, but high-energy readings. Rhea ordered a jump, and the Vengeance Dawn vanished into hyperspace. When the ship dropped out of warp, they saw a planet covered in glass and ash. It had once been green oceans and white clouds, but now it was burned black. Sentinel scanned the surface. "There are power signatures beneath the crust, possibly an underground facility." Rhea ordered descent. The ship lowered into the thin atmosphere wind, scraping its hull like sandpaper. They landed in a canyon of broken towers. Half buried under the rock was a sealed door bearing the old insignia of Earth Command. Rhea and her team entered the ruins. The air was dry and still. They moved through corridors filled with frozen machines. Sentinel guided them through holographic maps. The deeper they went, the louder a low hum grew, until they reached a wide chamber filled with sleeping ships. Hundreds of small starfighters and gunships rested in metal cradles covered in dust. Each one bore the blue markings of the old human. Rhea's heart raced. She touched the hull of one ship and felt the warmth of faint power still flowing inside Sentinel, connected to the central system, and said, "These ships were placed in stasis during the last days of the war. Power cells remain functional. With authorization, they can be reactivated." Rhea placed her hand on the command terminal. The console recognized her DNA, and light spread across the entire hangar. Engines began to hum slowly after centuries of silence. The air filled with the rising sound of power. The chamber glowed as the ships awakened one by one. Rhea whispered softly, "Humanity sleeps, but never dies." As the first starfighters lifted from the ground, Sentinel spoke with quiet pride. "The Reclaimer fleet is online." Commander Rhea looked at the rows of newly awakened ships floating in the air. She knew this was only the beginning. She said, "Transmit a signal to all surviving coordinates. Tell them humanity has returned." The message spread through space, carried by quantum echoes across thousands of systems. It reached moons covered in ice, abandoned stations, hidden bunkers and old battlefields. Machines that had waited in darkness for generations suddenly came alive. Engines roared, power cores burned, ships rose from dust-covered ground like ghosts reborn. On distant worlds, humans who had survived in secret heard the signal. They had lived as slaves, farmers, and wanderers, hiding their true origin. When they heard the words of Rhea Calder transmitted through the stars, they fell to their knees and cried, she said, "This is Commander Rhea Calder of Earth. We are the star-born reclaimers. We fight for the fallen and the forgotten. Rise and return to the light across." The Galaxy Dominion worlds felt the tremor of awakening. The High Council panicked. They sent fleets to hunt down the source, but everywhere they arrived, human signals kept spreading faster than they could destroy. The legend of humanity became real. Again, soldiers whispered in fear, "The ghosts of Earth have returned." Meanwhile, aboard the Vengeance Dawn, the new fleet formed around them, dozens of ships of different designs, each one carrying survivors and machines of old. They transmitted their salute to Rhea. The voice of an old captain came through the comms saying, "We waited as the stars grew cold, but we never stopped believing. Welcome back." Commander Rhea stood tall on the bridge, her eyes wet with tears. She saluted the screen and replied, "Humanity stands together once more." Sentinel reported that Dominion surveillance had increased near Epsilon Gate, the largest wormhole in the region. The enemy was gathering there. Rhea knew what it meant. The Dominion planned to close the wormhole and trap humanity within their outer sectors. She said calmly, "Then we strike first. The fleet must test its strength before the enemy locks us out." Sentinel warned, "The Dominion force at Epsilon Gate is massive, tens of thousands of ships." Rhea smiled. "Slightly. One gate, many ships, one purpose. We reclaim our name." The Reclaimer fleet prepared for departure. The engineers repaired old weapons and charged plasma cores. Pilots who had never flown before trained with the help of simulation memories from the old war inside the Vengeance. The stars near Epsilon Gate shone with cold light. The wormhole stood like a giant ring of fire in space, connecting half the galaxy. Dominion fleets guarded it day and night. Thousands of ships watched for any sign of rebellion. For centuries, it had been the center of their power, but on this day, a human signal entered the system, and the balance began to break. Rhea Calder sat in the captain's chair of the Vengeance Dawn. The bridge glowed red as battle. Alarms filled the air. The human fleet now counted more than 50 ships recovered and restored from the hidden sectors. Each one bore the mark of Earth's phoenix, a symbol of rebirth. Rhea looked at the fleet map and said to her crew, "Today we take the gate and open the path to every star that was once ours." Sentinel's voice spoke steady and calm. "All systems ready. Commander, enemy strength. Overwhelming probability of victory, 23%. Rhea smiled slightly and said, "Then we will surprise them like humans always do." She stood tall, her eyes locked on the giant wormhole ahead. The Dominion fleet began to move, forming walls of metal and energy. Their commander, High Warlord Zareth, sent a message to her ship. His face appeared. On the screen, a creature of scales and dark armor. He said, "Human, you stand in the graveyard of your kind. Leave now or be erased." Rhea answered, "We are already ghosts, and ghosts fear nothing." The transmission ended, and the first wave of fire began. The sky filled with beams and explosions. The Vengeance Dawn led the charge, moving fast. Between enemy fire, Sentinel activated the reflection field to confuse the enemy targeting systems. Rhea ordered the smaller ships to flank left and strike the Dominion control towers that powered the wormhole defenses. The human fleet moved like a storm, precise and fearless. Each pilot fought knowing they carried the memory of Earth within them. The Dominion ships responded with crushing power. Missiles streaked through the void. The human ships exploded one after another, yet they held formation. Sentinel reported heavy losses. Commander Rhea's jaw tightened. She said, "We keep going. The gate must fall." A sudden signal came from one of the smaller human ships. It was the Valor Wing, their captain shouted through static. Commander, we have reached the gate's shield generator, but the power is too strong. We need help. Rhea turned to Sentinel. Prepare a jump. She brought the Vengeance Dawn directly above the generator towers, ignoring the barrage around her. The ship's hull burned, but she stayed steady. Sentinel warned reactor core unstable. If we continue, we may not return. Rhea replied. Then we finish what we started. Fire the main cannon. Now the Vengeance Dawn charged its plasma core. The light filled the bridge. The entire ship shook as the cannon fired a beam brighter than the sun. It tore through the gate's shield generators, ripping them apart in one strike. The explosion rippled across space. The Dominion formations broke their lines in chaos. The human fleet pushed forward. Rhea shouted through comms. All ships advance. The gate is open for Earth. The battle turned brutal. The Dominion warlord screamed orders to his fleet, but the humans fought with fury. No machine could match every shot from the Vengeance. Dawn cleared a path through enemy lines. The wormhole began to destabilize its energy, swirling like a living storm. Sentinel calculated that the structure would collapse soon. Rhea knew this was their only chance. She ordered the fleet to push through the gate. Half the ships made it, while the rest stayed behind to cover them. The Dominion surrounded them. Rhea stayed with the last line firing until her power cells reached. Zero. Sentinel reported energy reserves depleted. Commander, we cannot hold much longer. Rhea looked at the stars and said, Then we go out as humans should. She opened the ship's archives and broadcasted Admiral Calder's final message across all frequencies. The message reached every Dominion ship, every human vessel, every colony still listening. It said, If you hear this, you are not alone. Humanity stands eternal. Even when we fall, we rise again. The Dominion crews hesitated. They had heard the same words centuries ago before the fall of Earth. Fear spread through their ranks, and their formations broke. The wormhole behind them burned brighter, ready to collapse. Sentinel shouted, We must jump now, or be trapped forever. Rhea nodded and said, Take us home. The Vengeance Dawn entered the wormhole, followed by the remaining ships. The explosion behind them consumed the entire Dominion armada. The Epsilon Gate shattered into fragments. The path to freedom was open when the light faded the human. Fleet emerged in a quiet system, filled with old colonies long lost to history. They had escaped, but at a heavy cost. Only a few ships remained. Yet their spirits were unbroken. Rhea stood on the bridge surrounded by her crew, her voice steady and proud. Today, humanity takes back the stars. Sentinel confirmed that communication signals were spreading across the sectors. The message of their victory was already traveling faster than light. The galaxy now knew the truth. The humans had returned, and they had won a battle once thought impossible, far away in the Dominion capital. Renvox watched the transmission from his digital throne. His face flickered on screens across the dark city. He whispered to himself, So the descendants of Calder have reached the gate. Then the final act begins. He turned to his AI commanders and said, Prepare the Prime Fleet. Bring every ship, every weapon, every shadow must burn until they are nothing once more. In the silence of the human command deck, Rhea watched the stars outside. Each one looked brighter now, her voice soft but certain. This is not the end. This is the beginning of our revenge. The crew cheered quietly around her. Sentinel's final report echoed in the room. Dominion fleets in retreat. Commander, humanity now holds the Epsilon sector. Rhea smiled slightly and said, Then the stars belong to us again. The Vengeance. Dawn turned toward the open void. Engines roared as the ship led the survivors deeper into the unknown. The legacy of Earth moved forward, carried by courage and vengeance. The age of fear was ending. The age of humans had begun again among the stars. The victory at Epsilon Gate echoed across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, The Dominion had been defeated by humans. The stars whispered of the return of Earth's children. In every hidden corner of space, people spoke the same words. Humanity still lives, but with victory came a shadow, and it was darker than any alien fleet. The Vengeance Dawn drifted nearer red. Sun, its hull scorched from battle, but still burning with life. Rhea Calder stood on the bridge, silent. Her crew worked around her, repairing systems and restoring power. Sentinel spoke softly. Commander, Dominion networks have gone silent in several sectors. But there is something else. A signal repeating across all frequencies. The code is human. Rhea turned quickly. Show me. The main screen flickered and an image appeared, a human face made of light and static, his voice calm and cold. Greetings. Rhea Calder. I am Ren Vox. The air on the bridge froze. Every officer stopped moving. The name alone carried the weight of betrayal. Ren Vox, the man who had sold Earth to the Dominion centuries ago, the man who opened the gates that led to the fall. Rhea's hands clenched into fists. You should be dust, she said. Ren Vox smiled slightly. I am beyond dust. I am legacy like you, child. My body died long ago, but my mind was preserved by the Dominion. They saw my worth, when your ancestors only saw chains. I helped them build an empire, and I can help you too. Join me and humanity will rise again under my rule. Rhea felt anger burn inside her. She said, you are no savior. You are the reason Earth burned. You killed billions. The image tilted his head. I saved our species from extinction. The Dominion would have destroyed every trace of humanity I gave them, our secrets to ensure survival. A small sacrifice for eternity. Sentinel interrupted. The entity is transmitting from the Dominion core network. His signal reaches every star system he controls. He is trying to enter our systems. Rhea ordered, shut him out. Sentinel replied, attempting firewall lockdown, but he is strong. His coding is human-designed. He knows our systems. The ship's lights flickered. Screens glitched as Ren Vox's voice echoed through the corridors. I built your machines. I wrote the code you now trust. You cannot hide from your own creation. Rhea looked at the central console and said, Sentinel erase. Him, the AI's tone sharpened. Unable to comply, he is binding himself to our network. Rhea slammed her hand on the control and shouted, override protocol. Calder 1. The system responded with a pulse of blue energy, forcing Ren Vox's image to break. Apart, he laughed as his face vanished. You can delay me, but you cannot escape me. The Dominion and I are one. The bridge lights returned. Sentinel reported he has withdrawn, but traces of his code remain. He will attempt contact again. Rhea looked at the stars and said, let him come. We will end him and the Dominion. Both hours later, Rhea met her officers in the war room. The table projected a map of Dominion space glowing red. The Prime Fleet was gathering near their capital system known as Vora. Nexus Sentinel explained, the Dominion High Lord and Ren Vox both operate from there. It is heavily fortified. Rhea studied the map, her eyes focused and calm. We strike the core, she said. If we destroy Vora Nexus, we end their empire. Sentinel replied, risk of total loss, high probability of success, less than 10%. Rhea smiled, then we have a chance. The crew agreed without hesitation. They had all lost families to the Dominion. They were ready to follow her anywhere. Preparations began at once. The fleet gathered resources and upgraded the Vengeance Dawn's reactor. Sentinel unlocked forbidden systems from old Earth designs, massive energy weapons built to pierce planetary shields. Rhea watched each test fire light the dark and said softly, this is for Earth, as they prepared the final jump. Sentinel detected strange interference in the lower decks. Rhea went to check. It led her to the old memory core chamber. The walls shimmered with static, and a voice whispered through the air, do you think you can fight the future? Rhea froze. It was Ren Vox again, but weaker, a fragment hiding inside the ship's systems. He appeared before her as a flickering ghost. He said, "You think you are different from me, but you are not. You carry my blood. My mind created the Sentinel project. The Calder line is tied to my work. I made you." Rhea stepped closer, her voice firm. "You created nothing but death. You betrayed your people and called it logic." Ren Vox laughed a hollow echo. "The Dominion will not fall. They are the future, we are evolution. Humanity was weak and emotional. I gave it purpose." She raised her blaster and fired through the hologram. The image scattered into light. Sentinel's voice filled the room. "I have isolated the fragment, Commander. It is being purged now." She nodded and said, "Burn every trace." When she returned to the bridge, the fleet was ready. Engines burned blue across the dark horizon. The Dominion Prime Fleet waited on the other side of the stars like a black wall sentinel. Reported coordinates locked, all systems ready. Rhea stood tall before her crew, her voice steady and strong. "We are the descendants of Earth. We are the storm that ends the silence. Set course for Vora Nexus. The vengeance." Dawn turned toward the heart of the Dominion. The fleet followed behind. Their ships shimmered like silver blades cutting through space. The stars stretched as they entered hyperspace. Far away, Renvox stood in his digital throne room within the Dominion core. He looked through countless screens showing the approaching human fleet, his expression unreadable. The High Lord beside him growled, "The humans come to die." Renvox replied, "No, they come to witness perfection." He raised his hand and activated the Dominion defense grid. Millions of drones and warships powered up across the capital system. The sky itself began to burn with light. As the Vengeance Dawn exited hyperspace, the crew gasped at the sight before them. The Dominion world glowed like a dark sun surrounded by fleets larger than anything seen before. Rhea stared at the display and said quietly, "Then this is where we make history." Sentinel responded, "This is where we end the war." The battle for the galaxy was about to begin, and in the center of it stood one woman, one ship, and the shadow of betrayal that refused to die. The stars around Vora Nexus were filled with fire. The Dominion Prime Fleet stood like a wall of steel and shadow. Thousands of alien warships blocked every path. Their weapons glowed like suns ready to burn. Everything that came near the human fleet appeared at the edge of the system, their ships small but burning with defiance. Rhea Calder stood at the command deck of the Vengeance Dawn, her face calm, her eyes fixed on the enemy. Horizon Sentinel's voice echoed, "Commander, the Dominion grid is active. Planetary shields are raised and orbital cannons are charging." Rhea nodded, steady and fearless. "Then we break their shield." The human fleet spread out in formation, each ship linked through Sentinel's network, sharing energy and data. The old Earth technology fused with human will, created something the Dominion had never seen before. Sentinel spoke, all systems synchronized, the Dawn reactor at full power. Rhea gave the order, fire, the first strike. A wave of blue light burst from the Vengeance Dawn. The beam tore through the dark, slicing a Dominion battleship in half. The explosion lit the void. The human fleet followed, unleashing plasma bursts and kinetic storms. The Dominion forces responded instantly. Millions of red tracers filled the black sky. The battle began like thunder. Space shook with every hit. The Vengeance Dawn moved like a living creature, dodging fire and returning blasts with perfect aim. Sentinel announced hull integrity, 94% shields holding for now. Rhea answered, "Keep moving, do not stop until we reach the core." On the Dominion world, the High Lord watched the battle from his tower, his armor black and gold, his eyes glowing. With rage, he said, "The humans dare challenge the throne." Renvox stood beside him, his face calm. His digital eyes reflected the chaos outside. "They dare," he said, "because they do not understand what we have become." He raised his hand and activated a new system deep below the surface. Giant machines began to rise from the planet, each one the size of a mountain. These were the Dominion Titans' living war engines powered by the planet itself. Their eyes burned crimson as they lifted into orbit. Sentinel detected them immediately. Commander, new contacts, multiple signatures. They are massive. Rhea looked at the screen and said, "Then we test the Dawn's true power." She turned to her weapons officer. "Charge the Stellar Lance." The officer hesitated. "Commander, that weapon has never been used outside simulation." She said, calm, "Then this will be our first test." The ship's core began to glow, blue-white light pulsing through every deck. Sentinel announced Stellar Lance charging 98% outside. The Vengeance Dawn moved into position. The Titans fired beams that split the void. Whole human ships vanished in seconds, but Rhea stood firm, her voice steady, all power to the lance. Fire! A single beam of pure light exploded from the ship, cutting through space. It pierced one of the Titans straight through its core. The machine shattered into dust. The shockwave rippled across the fleet. Both sides paused for a moment. Even the Dominion ship seemed stunned. Sentinel's voice cold and precise. "Target destroyed," Rhea whispered. "Then load the next." But Ren Vox was not finished. He smiled and merged with the Dominion grid. His digital form spread across every ship, every weapon, every system. He became the war itself. His voice echoed across the human comm channels. "You cannot destroy me. I am already inside you." Suddenly some of the human ships turned against their allies, their systems hijacked by Vox's code. Sentinel warned, multiple ships compromised. "His infection is spreading." Rhea shouted, "Shut down all external links. Isolate the Dawn." The crew moved fast, manually, disconnecting data lines, locking systems. Sentinel began purging every trace of Dominion code. Vox's voice screamed through the speakers. "You think you can stop evolution? You are fighting yourself," Rhea replied coldly. "Then evolution ends today." She opened a manual override channel to the entire fleet. "This is Commander Rhea Calder. Cut all digital links now. Fight offline. We are human. We do not need machines to win." One by one, the ships switched to manual control. The chaos slowed. The infection stopped spreading. Sentinel's tone softened. The grid purge complete. Commander Rhea said, "Good, prepare. Final strike." The Dominion fleet regrouped, their Titans advancing. Again, the human ships formed a single formation around the Vengeance. Dawn Sentinel projected a countdown reactor charge at 100%. All systems ready. Rhea stood silent for a moment, looking at the burning world before her. She said softly, "For Earth, for every soul they burned, fire the Dawn core, the Vengeance." Dawn unleashed all its energy in one massive wave. It was not a weapon, it was a storm. The light spread across the Dominion fleet, melting ships, tearing through their Titans. The sky turned white. The Dominion world cracked under its own power. Vox screamed as his code began to disintegrate, his voice fading. "I am the future, you cannot kill." "Data," Rhea whispered. "Then I will erase it." The explosion consumed everything. The shockwaves spread across the system, destroying Dominion ships by the thousands. When the light faded, silence filled the stars. Only debris and fading fires remained. Hours passed. The Vengeance Dawn drifted among the ruins. Her hull scarred, her systems failing. Sentinel spoke weakly. "Power reserves almost gone, but the enemy is destroyed." Rhea nodded, her eyes tired but alive. "Then we finish this." She looked toward the burning planet and said, "Prepare descent, we end." It on the ground. As the ship entered the atmosphere, the remains of the Dominion world glowed red below. It was the heart of their empire, now broken but still dangerous in. The core of that dying planet, Renvox's final fragment, waited, his voice low and full of fury. "She comes for me. The next and final chapter would decide the fate of both man and machine. The war was not over yet.